Good afternoon, everyone, and good evening to everyone in Israel. Today we'll have our next episode, episode 3 in season 2 of Little State Big Innovation. We are very happy because the program continues successfully. We have multiple events coming also, and basically today today we have our guest speaker from Israel, Oded Rose, CEO of the American Israel Chamber of Commerce. We'll have 3 Israeli companies, Ziv Cohen from Kagan, Jeremy Kagan from Cardiolink, and Amit Karen from RIHub. This program is run by the Rhode Island Israel Collaborative in collaboration with the RIHub. Annette Tonti, Managing Director of the RIHub. She's an interviewer, and we're looking forward to the program. So Oded, we are very happy that you'll be in our program today. We met you in Israel in December, and we have great relation going on between Israel and the Israel-America Chamber of Commerce, the RIIC, and Rhode Island, and you visited here. So please, it's an honor for us to hear you.
Thank you very much, Avi, and hello, everybody. I'm the CEO of the Israel-America Chamber of Commerce, also known as AmCham Israel. I'm a veteran of the Israeli high-tech industry, over 30 years. I started as a software engineer back in the 80s, did a master's in medicine in Tel Aviv University, an MBA at Wharton, worked as a consultant, as a venture capitalist in 2 funds, ran 3 companies, founded a school, and now for 6 years I'm a CEO of this U.S. Israel Chamber. We have about 300 members at our chambers. They make up about 1/3 of the Israeli economy, mostly the very large American and Israeli firms are based here. We serve as a platform for cooperation between those companies and external entities like government, like authorities, like the Innovation Authority, the Tax Authority, other entities. And we do a lot of collaboration, obviously, with US entities. And Avi Nevel, I would say, ranks very highly up there at the top. And I really want to thank you, Avi, for an amazing work you do, almost single-handedly, but I know you have a good board and a great cooperation from the state of Rhode Island, but you really are a beacon of work and good work and to strengthen the relations between Israel and the United States and Rhode Island, of course. And I'm very honored to be invited to this and to open this discussion. And I'll stop here and listen to more interesting things.
Thank you, Oded. Maybe you want to mention, recently I think you have, as an organization, worked on some projects that's very important to the Israeli society. So perhaps you can mention some of the projects, because I think that gives us an idea also for the audience where you can collaborate. So if you don't mind, I may mention a couple of those projects.
Okay. I think some of the projects we've been doing, or the forums that we've been initiating and leading, especially around the future of work. So that's something we've been dealing with for a number of years. And more recently, in the last 2-3 years, we started a forum on circular economy, and now we added climate change and ESG in general. And we have, it's hard to believe it, we actually have about 9 different tracks in this, we call it a sustainability forum, anywhere from plastic recycling to a course on how to be a better engineer in climate change era. And through regulatory work, we do a lot of work with the government. We have a group that's working on transportation issues and how to reduce the reliance on private transportation and increase reliance on public one, and many other things. So we are sort of the place to come definitely for the US companies based in Israel, and there are over 300 such US companies here. and also for the large Israeli companies, and to cooperate between them for the benefit, of course, of first of all of the companies, their employees, their customers, their suppliers, but for the greater good of the Israeli economy in this case, but and the country.
And you guys also
that's in short.
And also, you guys working with the government of Israel and the U.S. in regulation enhancement. Is that correct?
That's definitely correct. We do a lot of work, not only in climate and environment, but also on healthcare, on taxes, on visa and relocation. We have various activities that we do, and we work very closely with the government. I appear in the Knesset committees from time to time. We don't do lobbying, but we do advocacy. So we definitely are very sort of a very active place. We have a very good board of directors. It's about 30 members, CEOs of the largest companies here in Israel. The CEO of Intel, Yaniv Garti, is the chairman of our board, and we have the CEOs of anywhere from Strauss to IBM and Cisco and many other companies who are members of our boards, and very active members. So we're very fortunate with our membership and with the activities we've been able to run.
It's wonderful. And I have to say that anytime we here from Rhode Island need help, we always have great help from Oded and from Ariella Ashkenazi. I have to mention her. She's a vice president at the organization. And so if there is any Rhode Islanders listening to it, we have a nice conduit through the Israel-American Chamber, and of course other venues too. Oded, we want to thank you so much for participating in our program today and wishing you a happy Passover.
Thank you very much, Avi. And I will stay and listen, not for the whole thing, but I will definitely.
Thank you so much. And now I would like to transfer it to Annette Tonti. Annette Tonti, she's a co-producer of this program with me. She's a managing director of the RIHub. She's an innovator. She's a force in Rhode Island in changing the ecosystem. And I cannot be more proud than to have Annette on this program with us. So Annette, it's all yours.
Thank you, Avi. I'm also a 3-time serial entrepreneur, so I know what you guys go through when you're doing what you're doing. And by the way, let me just echo Oded. If it wasn't for Avi, none of this would be happening. He's the man. So I'm thrilled to be working with him. All right, we have 3 amazing, great companies today. I'm very excited to introduce you to all of them. What I'll say is, if you have questions, we're going to ask them each to do about a 10-minute presentation, after which, if you've got some questions, you can put them in the chat, or you can actually unmute yourself and just speak up. But we're going to give them each roughly around 12 minutes time, 10 minutes for the pitch and a little bit of Q&A. So we're going to start off first with Ziv Cohen of PageLint, who is the CEO of PageLint. And this is all about frictionless fraud and protection for fintech in particular. You talk about new digital banking and mobile wallets, etc. This is where PageLink comes in. Ziv has got 20 years experience in cybersecurity. He drove sales and strategy for a number of innovative startups and Fortune 500 companies. So he's got both sides of the equation there. He's also a person who's done a successful startup at least once before, probably many times, but he actually sold his voice recognition company per se to Nuance. Now he is CEO of PageLint. So take it away, Ziv. Happy to hear from you.
Thank you very much, Annette. Avi, thanks everyone. It's great to be here. So as Annette mentioned, we are actually in the cybersecurity and specifically anti-fraud space. Myself, my team, we all come with a very strong background in cybersecurity and fraud. We've been in this space for about 24 years now. So working with banks, financial organizations, payments, and other companies, helping them avoid money loss as a result of the ever-changing sophistication of the fraudsters, always flying under the radar of the existing security controls, trying to circumvent and of course cash out and liquidate stolen money. So Annette, as you mentioned, the last company actually got acquired by IBM a few years ago, where we developed solutions to protect banks against, or what we call the traditional banking, against previous attacks and threats related to malware, online banking. But then we identified a gap that exists because all the financial services market is shifting towards what's today called fintech, which includes all the neobanking, challenger banking, e-wallets, mobile wallets, crypto wallets. It's all cashless, cardless. And those solutions that we also developed and designed previously do not meet the requirements of those companies. So there was a need to bridge this gap by designing a solution that can, on one hand, provide them the ability to get protected very quickly, since as opposed to the incumbent banks, they don't have the know-how, the knowledge, the teams, the funds, the experience to protect themselves and also have all those operation centers, while on the other hand, we really provide them the state-of-the-art technology that can very accurately indicate on high suspicious activities and distinguish between fraudsters and legitimate customers, so that they can fulfill their own strategy and provide a new frictionless experience to their customers. So we work globally. We have customers all over the world in fintech, and we cover various domains and use cases. Basically, what we've done is build a solution that can very quickly be implemented by those organizations. So it only takes a few weeks to get up and running, from kickoff all the way to production, while providing full coverage for all the fraud use cases. It might be new account fraud with fraudsters opening fake accounts and then using those fake accounts to transfer money from one account to another, liquidate and cash it out. Everything has to do with account takeovers, stealing credentials, identities. It's very, very easy today to do that by using social engineering, phishing, putting some malware and other stuff on our devices, basically, and then stealing the information, all the way to even more sophisticated attacks that are very difficult to track, like synthetic identity fraud, which is like a blended identity with no real person behind it. So tracking or tracing it or tracking such activities is quite sophisticated. It's quite challenging, I would say. So what you're looking at is what we've built. Here is the bank's app. Link it to the Kagan box and simply get it all as a fully managed service, so that nothing is really required from the bank, and Kagan takes care of all that. Some of the use cases that I've mentioned, but even more than that, because fraud is very dynamic, it's changing all the time. So we need to be vigilant, and we have to make sure that we're always tracking those activities, and in most cases, also being able to alert on such fraud before the transaction occurs. And that's where the value is. So we can actually analyze the entire user's journey, not just the transaction or the payment, which is the last part of this journey, but actually from the beginning, when you download the bank's app, you install it, you open a new account, you register, you log in, you are navigating within the application. So every action is measured for risk. And this enables us to start understanding what's going to be the likelihood that this payment or transaction will be legit or fraudulent. The technology that enables all this is quite broad as well and very in-depth. So as opposed to working narrowly and only analyzing parts of the overall journey, we designed and developed 6 different intelligence sets that literally leave nothing behind. So the 6 intelligence sets are divided to 3 groups. You can see they're color-coded also. The green.
By the way, we don't see your screen. You're not sharing your screen. I don't know if you're aware to it.
Really? Okay.
Or at least
I see a screen.
Yeah.
only
Okay.
the background. I'm sorry, I'm interfering.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Can you see it now?
Okay. Yes, now.
All right, great. So the 6 intelligence sets, you can see that they're also color-coded. We have the green, the blue, and the gray. And each group is responsible for different parts of the risk analysis. And that's a huge differentiator because, for example, the device DNA and the user space are both around the device recognition. Device DNA is like the next gen of device fingerprinting because basic device IDs used in the industry today can be easily circumvented by simple action of not even fraudsters, all of us. We take the phone, we reset it to factory default, you get a new device ID. Not good enough, very weak. User space, so the device DNA survives all those attempts. User space, extend that, and we actually looking at the environment of the user and the device. Yeah, I'll give you an example. My phone, your phone, there is nobody else in the world that holds the exact same phone that we are currently holding in our hands, right? Not just the model, but our operating environment. And we are able to look at it, create like a unique signature, and then we know exactly whether it's us connecting, transacting, paying, or somebody else. And it goes on and on. We analyze the behavior of the user. How do we behave inside the application? Which screens do we visit? Whether we even human being or machines running those applications, and analyzing all our spending habits and transactions behavior. All that is ingested into the system. And at the end of the day, we're able to indicate on fraud or legitimate transactions very accurately. It's all happening in real time. Very easy to implement as well. We've actually invested quite heavily in shortening the time because cybersecurity and anti-fraud products are quite heavy, and it takes a very long time for the organization to implement them. In our case, it is super easy. Also providing all the risk assessment information and visibility into what's happening inside the company. And that's what we've actually reached, okay? We've gained an accuracy that goes way beyond the industry's benchmark. And this is a key, again, value for our customers and all the fintech space because they're able to really just block the fraudulent transactions while enabling their customers to frictionlessly use their applications, services, pay, and transfer money. And just to wrap it up, so again, we work globally. We have customers all over the world. We've been endorsed by many companies, including Citibank, MasterCard, European Commission, and others. And we are currently growing. We're expanding from Latin America, Asia, EMEA, where we are, also to North America, of course, US as well. We already incorporated our US company, so that's going to be our next milestone to establish our presence in the United States. And of course, we're also in a process of raising more funds to enable this growth. That is about us. Thank you very much for the time you've given me.
Thank you, Ziv. That was great. So clearly your customers are the actual fintech companies themselves, not me, the consumer, correct?
That's correct. Yes, we are a B2B company, all SaaS based. Yeah. That's what also enables this to be very quick and easy.
So are you also aimed at, so I use Coinbase, which is my digital wallet for my transactions in, you know, in crypto cash, Bitcoin, etc. Are you also able to protect that kind of a digital wallet?
Oh yeah, definitely. So every digital wallet, regardless of what is the exact functionality, is covered by the solution.
Awesome. You said that you're entering the US. Have you found a location yet? Are you settled in terms of where you're headed?
So actually, in the previous round, one of the investors was CI, Connecticut Innovations. So we incorporated our US company in Connecticut.
Got it. Yep. Yeah. We are very close to Connecticut, by the way. Yeah, so if you happen to want to move up to Rhode Island, we'd be happy to support you here as well. Actually, that's a big part of what RIHub is all about, is helping startup companies like yours, even though you're certainly a mature startup, which is great. Anybody else in the audience have any other questions at this time?
So I have a question. Are you mainly for banking or any other institutions that deal with accepting money?
any financial institution. So it's banks, mobile wallets, fintechs that either remain fintechs or in the process of becoming a digital bank.
Great. That's awesome. Great job. And how long has this company been around?
About 6 years.
And you came out of IBM, correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So the last company I've been with was Trusteer, which was acquired by IBM. So yes, I've spent some time with IBM as well before starting Kagan.
That's great. Okay, terrific. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And we're going to move on next to Jeremy Kagan. So we'll give Jeremy the ability to put his live slides up on. And as I mentioned, Jeremy, he is the founder and CEO of Cardiolink. He actually has got experience across the board from other startups to large corporations, diagnostic companies. He actually has some healthcare background, mobile payment background as well. So we actually are connected because we both dealt with Belcor back in the 80s. There was such a thing as the 80s. I was 5 years old and so was Jeremy when we started there, but we probably have some people that we know together. So take it away, Jeremy. We're excited to hear about Cardiolink.
Thank you, Annette. The 1980s were the days before Al Gore invented the internet, if you remember those.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
So, can you see my full screen?
Yes.
Okay. So, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction, and thank you, Avi, for arranging this event. I'd like to present Cardiolink, which is about improving chronic disease care with information access. The problem is chronic disease really touches everybody. 60% of American adults suffer from chronic disease. Unfortunately, it has a toll in that diagnostic errors affect millions of Americans and millions of people worldwide. And the documented statistics are that about 80,000 patients in the U.S. die every year as a result of diagnostic error, basically overlooking various one or more chronic conditions that a chronic patient may be suffering from. And why is there so much error? It's because medical data is still shared manually. And
we don't see your screen. I don't know if you're sharing it.
Okay, I am.
I do see the screen.
Oh, you see it?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
There's a picture of a vault on my screen. Can you see the
you know
vault?
what? Your screen is not moving forward then. Because I just see your initial page. Yeah. Maybe stop sharing it. There we go. Now I see it.
Okay. So
yeah.
The reason why information is still shared manually because the onus is on the creator of the information, medical information, to protect it, to protect the patient's privacy, and which is a good thing. But that's a double-edged sword, because that means that data is not always available exactly when the patient needs to share it with somebody, or a specialist or a doctor or a medical team needs to access that information. I mean, in some situations, you still have data that's still being faxed between hospitals and care centers. The various data initiatives that are around in the world there are very good things like FHIR, F-H-I-R, HL7 FHIR. But the problem is that the ownership of making or facilitating the flow of information doesn't fall on a single entity, and so the sharing of information actually still falls between the cracks very often. And so that's the problem that we've come to solve at Cardiolink. We, as being myself, my co-founder and partner, Dr. Jacob Levy, who's a practicing cardiologist, my brother Gam, who has funded our first bootstrap and gives us commercial advice. And we've since 6 years ago, when we started, we have started building up a scientific advisory board. Professor David Leibowitz from Hadassah, Professor Rain from Hadassah, Dr. Diego Gicovet, who's an expert in imaging systems, imaging technologies at Hadassah, and we're building our internal team as well. Our chief information officer, and we've just added on a chief technical officer. That we're growing, and what we're doing in terms of this growing, what we're doing in terms of our solution, is that we've built this light data layer where it does not require any integration. That we make this easy interface, that we have this diagnostic modality interface portal, this light add-on layer that allows information to flow, or that connects information directly from the modalities, the diagnostic modalities like ultrasound machines and nuclear imaging machines, MRIs, as well as other data repositories, so from PACS systems, EMRs, and so on. So it's this flow mechanism with a single sign-on for all of the caregivers on the patient's care journey. That includes the doctors, the nurses, the imaging technicians, as well as the patients themselves. So it really enables patients to self-manage their journey, and especially when you're dealing with chronic disease patients, that is extremely important. And what I'm showing now is a demonstration of the system. This is our dashboard, and information is segmented by who needs to see it, when they need to see it, what's been scheduled. So it's been designed, the user interface has been designed so that the caregivers, especially the specialists who are overworked, can get a very, very good look at what needs to be done. You know, it's a workstation, what needs to be dealt with today. And now for each patient, what does this patient have? And what was the test that was ordered? Was the test completed? Is the information there? What other tests has this patient had? So really get a very good snapshot of the patient's history, and being able also to communicate with the other caregivers on this patient's case. Very often the diagnostic technician needs to communicate, has questions, or the primary care physician that ordered the test. They need to communicate with each other, and that communication is secure and private. The patient, though, has access to the reports and can get the images and so on. And more importantly, the patient can request that the images be shared with other specialists to get a second opinion, third opinion, and so on. So where we are is what we've proven in our journey so far is that patients are worth to us about $4, and we deliver, and that's based on our current pricing in Israel, and we bring at least a 40% workflow improvement to the doctors in the time it takes to read, to interpret a diagnostic exam like an echocardiogram, and to report on it, and to share that report back with the patient's care provider, their HMO. We're finding that patients are engaged because it's patients who've brought us to Hadassah seeking second opinions, and from that bringing us to Hadassah, we've gone into pilot there and have gone through the Hadassah Accelerator, and we have a patent pending, and we have a business to consumer model that's ready to go. Where we are in terms of ready to go, in terms of commercializing the product, is that on the left side here, we're continuing our organic growth. We've bootstrapped since the beginning of 2016, and we're currently in service with our minimum viable product. We're growing in Israel. The system was designed for the US, for my partner who was seeing patients, who was practicing medicine in the US, but since then he made Aliyah, and he started practicing medicine or cardiology in Israel. And so now we are in service here in Israel. We're providing service to him, to another private practitioner, and between the two of them, we're now seeing patients from 2 of the 4 HMOs in Israel, and we're looking to expand to other markets organically. But with a seed round, a $3 million seed round, we have a very exciting product plan which we can start scaling up the business much more quickly and accelerate our revenue much more quickly and be much more effective. And in terms of our vision, becoming this medical data clearinghouse is the vision. That vision is shared by a number of industry leaders, such as IBM AlphaZone, such as the Hadassah Accelerator, HIMSS, and so on. These are organizations that have given us, that have invested in us time and effort and money in getting our message out. In terms of our product roadmap, where we are today on the left side of this graph is the diagnostic modality interface portal, and we constantly have this increasing list of features that every doctor that uses it wants more features. What's next on our roadmap is deploying machine learning algorithms and eventually big data applications that will help both the pharma as well as patients themselves. In terms of our go-to-market, which we get a lot of questions about, our go-to-market, really where we are is any patient record implants us in that patient care journey. So we're now in the patient care circle. So we don't have to become the Epic. We don't have to be the hospital's Cerner. We just have to provide interpretation and reporting services to any doctor in that chain for that particular patient, and now we are in the service chain, and that's a position from where we can expand. So we've proven that model in Israel. We are already at almost about 4,000 patients that we've processed, and it's taken us into Hadassah, and we're looking now to replicate that model in the USA. And in terms of why we would succeed where others, in a very difficult market, well, we are experienced technology and business people. We managed to elbow our way to the table. And where we are is, yeah, there are giants in the industry, but we fit right in the middle. We fit right where across all of these different segments of the market, the on-premise market, the EMR market, the PACS market. We're like this cross-institutional PACS combined with a patient engagement system that gives a very powerful and effective workstation to the medical practitioners, to the doctors themselves, that brings it all together in a very nice package. And that nice package today, we're functioning in the cardiology space because we built our system initially for my partner, who's a cardiologist, and that's where the name Cardiolink comes from. But that's not where we're stopping. We're continuing on to other specialties. With the seed round, we expect to expand into other specialties and other customer bases, and all along continue signing up more doctors, getting more patients, more revenue, and building the company that way, and eventually getting, our goal is to get to the 2 million patients per month mark. That would be really put us in a very, very sweet spot. And this has a very personal journey for me, because my mom, may she rest in peace, was misdiagnosed with kidney disease when it was really endometrial cancer, and the cancer was discovered too late. So yeah, she had the whole slew of chronic diseases, and unfortunately, one of the biggest chronic diseases that she was suffering from was not diagnosed. It was missed, and as a result, she died probably a few years sooner than she should have had. So we'd like to avoid that in the future, and I'd like to thank you very much for your time. If this resonates with anybody on this call or in Rhode Island, certainly like to have a discussion. Thank you very much.
This is a huge problem. I myself have looked in my own medical portal, and it's horrendous. It's worthless almost. So this is an awesome problem that you are working on to fix. Let's see.
So your ideal partner here, if we try to help you in Rhode Island, would be a hospital, an HMO?
It could be a private practice. Generally, or at least the trend, as far as I understand in the U.S., is that local hospitals or regional hospitals are being serviced by these by specialist groups. So the specialists are functioning as outsourcers to the local hospitals. And very often, sometimes they're connected in directly to the hospital's systems. Sometimes they have to provide their own systems. So those doctors or those specialty groups that need to provide their own technology, back-end technology, those would be a perfect prime customer for us, because we bring them not just a replacement to their packs, we bring them so much more functionality that they can now add on these additional services.
So your first entry is into a group, a hospital or an individual doctor practitioner, which there are very few of those, because we would love to help you get involved with our healthcare arena here in Rhode Island. That would be really fantastic. I have a quick question for you. The name Cardiolink. The initial thought is this is all about my cardio stuff, which is, by the way, the leading cause of death here in the United States. I could say that. But does it eventually also pull all of the patient data together? Or is it
yes, it is today. And what I tried to show in the demonstration, it's all patient data. It's really it's from independent devices. It's not limited to cardio. The name cardio is, that's where we started. That's what we know best as of now. I mean, we support 32 different cardiographic types of studies with structured reporting already built in. And our plan as we grow is eventually change the name or have multiple names for the different products.
It's a massive problem. And I noted on your 2x2 matrix, I mean, it is a crowded space, right? And so it would be really interesting if you could send Avi and I maybe a quick intro paragraph so we could actually send it out to some folks here locally in Rhode Island. We would love to talk to you about potentially coming to Rhode Island to be, a landing spot for you here in the US. That's something that we do. But on top of that, my other question to you is your seed round. Right now, you're bootstrapped. You've been doing that for 2 years. That's really awesome and amazing. And you've got an MVP. Your seed round, when do you think that might start? When will you start the conversations there?
Well, we've already lined up a bunch of co-investors. They're waiting for that first investor, the first organization, the first investor to write that first check.
Okay.
And then everything, and it's like dominoes, so.
Got it.
It could be within the next 2 weeks. It could be in the next 2 months or 6 months. I don't know, but we're just plugging ahead. We're not waiting for anybody, and we're not going with our hat in hand to the. We've avoided having to take money from the Israel Innovation Authority because we're not restricted, so we have no restrictions on us whatsoever, and we're just plugging away.
Yeah, that's great.
I want to say that if you're looking to expand to the US, we have the Israel Bridge program under Annette's group, and you can come if you accept it for 6 months. You get space for free, one-on-one mentoring, and obviously connection with the local hospital as a Brown University Medical School, which is here. So maybe it's worthwhile for you to talk with Annette about the program. And I think we already have accepted 4 companies to the program, and perhaps that might be some interest for you. So I suggest you talk with Annette, and she can guide you to the right direction.
I will follow up. I will send. But that's great, and a great platform. Thank you for what you're doing. I'm really sorry to hear about your mother. That is unfortunately a story that's told over and over again. And it's by the way, just keeping patient data. You need to have 2 or 3 people around a person who's going through healthcare just to interpret what's going on, and tell the other doctors who don't know what's going on.
And to go to all of the appointments and all the tests. It's exhausting.
It is exhausting.
The entire family.
A quick sidebar, because we do have 1 more minute left. Is there any talk of putting all this on a blockchain? I'm just bringing that up because blockchain and healthcare basically data is being tossed around all the time. What's your thought on that?
Very much so. Actually, the chart. I'm sorry, I messed up with some of my slides, but there was an older slide that I showed. But our CTO has moved over into the CIO position. and we've brought in a new CTO who's a blockchain jock. And we're actually going to be, our idea is to treat the medical records as NFTs.
Love it. Awesome. Let's go. That's
and with IBM, you know, with IBM partnering, I mean, we've been migrating. We're also in the process of migrating our application onto IBM's cloud.
Oh, perfect.
Going through the IBM, you know, AlphaZone Accelerator has been fantastic for us. In parallel, we also have gone through the IBM HyperProtect Accelerator at the same time, and they're giving us a lot of consulting and helping us migrate and implant our application on IBM's cloud, which, you know, just only improve security, improve our service, and so on. Well,
joining the RIHub, and as I say, there is no restriction from our viewpoint of the program. It's free without any commitment. I don't know if you know, but it was partially, and everybody should know, it's partially IBM AlphaZone Israel, IBM, Brown University is a state, and as a matter of fact, Ronen Simantov is a resident CTO because the pandemic stopped him from traveling. He was supposed to come here to help, but he's a resident CTO. So one of the nice things here is there is a continuation to companies that join the program. So I highly recommend you talk with Annette and explore it.
Let's see what we can do. And yeah, I mean, IBM is part of our core membership. So that would be terrific. Jeremy, you're on a great mission. Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. All right. And last but not least, we have Amit Karen. Apologies. Okay. You know, I love the name of your company, FlowHow. It's really interesting. Amit is a co-founder and CEO where they help imaging professionals to recover lost revenue and streamline their workflow. They're really making imaging smarter. So we're going to hear from Amit, who previously was at Deutsche Telekom, as well as some other large corporations. But take it away, Amit.
Thank you, Annette. Yeah, so one small side note, my stepfather graduated the then nascent field of computer science with a PhD in 1974. So a little bit before you were 5 years old, I think, something like that.
I wasn't even born.
So anyway, that's yeah. So we are FlowHow. Thanks for the intro. Also graduates of the Hadassah Accelerator and IBM AlphaZone. So yeah, we've benefited from their support. Basically, our journey started out by trying to make the operational workflow, not the clinical workflow, more productive. What we learned along the way is that, especially in the United States, or to paraphrase, you know, Willie Sutton, the famous bank robber, it's where the money is. And right now, that's on reimbursement denials. So we start out in radiology, but this kind of logic of looking at siloed systems and disparate data and manual processes that cause a lot of overhead, stress, burnout, and not to mention money lost and worse, patient care issues. We even had this with my mom when she was undergoing cancer treatment. You know, these are all things that we want to help out. So the bottom line is we want to remove the barriers so the teams can focus on what really matter, the patients, not the process. And it's a stepwise process to do these kind of things. We have a really strong team. So together with myself, I bring over 25 years of experience in the high-tech industry. The company was founded based on AI research of Professors Yuval Alovich and Yuval Shachar from Ben-Gurion University. So we have a lot of intelligence on board, and together with them, we have a very strong advisory team, both on the clinical side, including the clinical side. We have Professor Jacob Sosna from Hadassah. He's the head of radiology there. Dr. Michal Gindi, the head of radiology of Asuta, our other pilot partner in Israel, and Natalie Greenbaum, who brings the hand-on technologist. He's a lead technologist at Hadassah. And in San Antonio, we have Professor Cal Clark, who's the vice chair of informatics. On the research side, we have Professor Tim Stick, and Tim is a medical physicist. He knows the ins and outs on the physics side. And we complement that with two great entrepreneurs in the healthcare space, Menashe Benjamin, who is the founder of Algotech, so one of the older PACS companies, now part of Philip, and Avner Halperin, the founder of Early Sense, a bed sensor company, also been around for quite a lot of years. So a very strong team. I'd like to touch about why it's so important. So the U.S. radiology market is huge. Okay, over 91 million CT exams every year, over 42 million MRI exams every year. It's a market of scale. Okay, that market of scale means that you would expect the process to flow very smoothly, from referral to scheduling to admissions to the exam itself, where you see a picture of some of the work we've done at Hadassah here, to the diagnosis. Okay, that is what you would expect at this kind of scale. The problem is, and I think this was alluded to in the previous presentation as well, is that at every step of the way, there's somebody different handling the patient and the data on different machines with different processes. Okay, so instead of something being very scalable, easy to do, you have things that are very siloed, ending up in what looks like a broken telephone. Okay, and this broken telephone leads to what industry analysts estimate a 6 to 10% denial rate. What does that mean for a fair-sized hospital? $500,000 lost a month, or $6 million a year. Okay, now obviously they want to try and recoup this, but the problem is that even when they try to do so, basically the amount of money they spend, or $27 per exam on average, is equal to the money they get back. They get back about a quarter. And you compound this with the difficulties that they have dealing with 50 to 70 insurers on average. It's just very difficult. Meaning that if we talk about the US market as a whole, there are $10 billion on the table just for this problem alone, and just for this problem in radiology. And this is something we plan to take to other domains like pathology, oncology, et cetera, down the line, because the architecture of all these environments is relatively the same kind of things. You have systems that people use that just don't talk to each other, meaning that at the end of the day, there is data, but that data doesn't reach the people who need to use it. Okay, and this is why we developed our solution and iterated upon it. Basically, we want to enable radiology teams, or specifically radiology directors, to take measurable actions. Or to put it simply, we want to be their morning newspaper, so that they see the 1, 2, 3 headlines of things that they want to do. Things like how to correct incorrect referrals, which we've seen, or exams that aren't covered, because we mentioned that it's Israel is simple, but the US is quite a minefield on the payer side. And again, our focus is the provider, either an outpatient clinic or a hospital that has different functions. Okay, how do we do this? At the end of the day, we're capable of mapping the different systems within the workflow. For example, in radiology, the two key systems, and there are others, are the radiology information system, the RIIC, and the PACS, the picture archive and communication system. By modeling the metadata there, we understand the workflow, we understand what happens, and I'll give an example in a second. And by applying a dual layer AI, and I'll explain the relevance of that in a bit, we're capable of telling them, hey, the referrals from this HMO and this doctor for an abdominal exam are the ones that are causing you the most problems. In this case here, the top line item is a head CT where it should be with contrast, and it was ordered without contrast. Okay, so moving forward, as an example from one of the pilots that we're working with, so we came to them and we asked a simple question, and it's a lot about these kind of things. We asked them, how many changes do you think happen at the point of care? Okay, they're a very proficient provider, and they said, well, rarely if ever. Okay, that rarely, if ever, is 16% of the time. That's hardly marginal. Okay, and for example, 535 of those exams had multiple changes along the way. Those multiple changes along the way caused reimbursement denials. If you times that by the average price of a CT exam in the United States, which is $900, benchmark that Journal of American Medical Association used a couple of years ago, then you're almost at $500,000 for this problem alone. Okay, and we're not talking about the other things that happen because of changes at the point of care. And if you talk to the US providers, even after prior authorization, at least 5% of the patients, when they arrive, they have problems with their referrals. And it starts there, and it only gets worse. Apologies for this slide, but basically, the problem we're dealing with here is that on one hand, you have a small amount of exams that have a high volume and a long tail of exams that are, let's say, outliers. And as humans, we are capable of handling exceptions or putting things in context. Machines find this very difficult. This is exactly part of what we're cracking and why we're capable of helping them with reimbursement denials. In terms of competition, there are a lot of great companies in the radiology space. We're the only ones that really look at it from the workflow out. Okay, you have the big iron vendors, GE, Philips, Siemens, and others. They focus on selling big machines, and that's their cash cow. I worked at Deutsche Telekom, okay? The core was selling services. Anything else, just don't bother. Just don't interfere. So while they do have solutions, their data just doesn't reach the people who need it, the radiology directors. Same thing for the infrastructure side, either on the PACS or the RIIC, being Epic or Sectra or others. Okay, there is a race there to be able to provide more enterprise imaging. So there's a lot of pressure for them to focus on what's happening there. And on the revenue cycle management side, they're outside of radiology, okay? It is, in a sense, garbage in, garbage out for them because they're very intelligent, but when you don't know what's actually happening in context, you can't correct it. And that leaves us to help actually improve the revenue cycle management process, which is also something that we have in dialogue. In terms of the business model, and this is pretty much where I'll finish things up, it's a straightforward SaaS business model. Our field is healthcare operations. Benchmark for ROI here is between 4x to 7x. That's exactly where we are, meaning if I said $500,000 a month lost, we save 10% of that. That's $600,000 a year, okay? That tells you basically where we can charge. Because we're operational, we're not clinical, but we're still dealing with PHI to an extent, very, very light. We need to collect data on premise. This is what we do today. De-identify that and then upload it to our cloud for the analytics. That allows two things. One, it's economical for the customers. And two, it allows us to aggregate things and help them benchmark themselves versus others, okay? And improve if necessary. So to summarize things, why us? One, we have a great team, a lot of spirit. We really love what we're doing. We did, hopefully, our homework. Okay, so we spoke to 170 healthcare professionals in the US over the past year and a half that we've been around, 45 providers, and the common denominator being the revenue side. We have a slew of other use cases, being whether it's timely patient release or taking care of people who don't want to pay out of pocket. But right now the focus is revenue, is denials. We have 2 successful pilots in Israel at Hadassah and Asuta, and we're on our way to our first pilot in the US. That's signed, that's in process, meaning we're now completing our compliance applications and we're good to go. So what are we looking for in Rhode Island or hoping for? We'd love to bring another pilot on board, okay? And we don't have a beachhead in the US today. So definitely happy to talk about that. So I hope that
Great.
basically summarizes everything
Thank you, Amit.
about us. And thanks again for the opportunity.
Awesome. I have to tell you, that's one of the best competitor slides I've ever seen. I've actually taken a screen print of it. I want to show some of our entrepreneurs. Really well done. It was very clear where you fit. Many entrepreneurs have a difficult time with that. So when it comes right down to it, my big question is, it's a SaaS platform, basically in the cloud, etc. This is in process workflow change, correct? So when this gets installed, is there a lot of work that FlowHal needs to do to work with the individual people that actually do this work in radiology?
Okay, that's a very, very good question. I didn't touch upon it, but that is what part of what we learned by working with Hadassah and Asuta to automate the data collection, okay, to aggregate it and do processing on the hospital side. So basically for us, because the DICOM and the HL7 standards are, they exist, but they're very fragmented. So we built up the capability to do that in an automated manner. So let's say in an environment, if we're installed today, basically in a month, we're up and running, meaning this is after contracting, etc. In installation, testing, then training, and we can go to live within a month.
That's great. Well, I know between Avi and I think we'd like to find a radiology group here in Rhode Island to be your second pilot. And since you don't have a beachhead yet, here in the US, we'd love to talk to you about that. And obviously we need to have a pilot in order to talk about that, but that's terrific. Avi, I don't know if you have anything else. Yeah.
Yeah, Amit, just be in touch with us. We'll probably connect you with a couple of the departments here in the local hospitals. The Miriam Hospital is potential, or maybe Rhode Island Hospital. So yeah, be in touch with us later, and we'll try to get you some. We were successful, and it's not 100% guarantee with other project with some of the local hospitals. So hopefully we can be helpful as well in this. And of course, participating in the RIHub is an option as well, I think, for Annette.
Absolutely. And you found an important niche in a very big market that nobody else is paying attention to. I got to believe that could help in many other ways after you get this going. So many.
That is our hope, to expand it to other areas within the healthcare providers or groups. So yes.
Yeah, that's terrific. Great job and excellent work. Thank you so much. Avi, I'm going to turn it back to you. We're coming up to our hour, and thank you, everybody. It was really great to listen to everyone today. Great job.
Yeah, so thank you. First, I want to thank again Oded Rose, the CEO of Israel America, for continuing to help in building the relation with Rhode Island and speaking in our program. Annette, I want to thank you as always. You are the heart of this program. And to our speakers today, to Ziv, Jeremy, and Amit, I think you have a very interesting product and what you're doing, and we will try to assist you here in connecting you with the Rhode Island ecosystem. Our next program will be May 25th, and then probably later we'll have some other programs that's coming. I just want to mention, yesterday we finished a competition between the ecosystem in Blue Tech, between Ashdod, Hub, and Newport. There was a successful program. We have multiple other programs coming on board. And so basically keep follow us and be in touch with us. So with that said, I would like to wish everybody on the program and to the listeners, happy Passover to those in Israel, Chag Sameach lekulam, and to our Christian friends, happy Easter as well. And if we have any Muslims in our program, sometime we have Ramadan Kareem as well. So with that said, until next time, good night to you guys in Israel. We have a few more hours to work here, and thank you so much.